recently Shax made these videos, right, where he went over like basic overture tutorials. They're very quick, but the servant clear ones, honestly they're a little bit dubious in quality. So this is my version of servant clear tutorials, but because I'm a different person, they're not going to be short, snappy. They're going to be long, drawn out, and probably boring. So with Soul, you're going to want to do this. This is L6 and L4X. You can swap them. It doesn't really matter how you do things. And if you want to knock them down, you should generally use your side specials, both of them. For OTGing, you just do that, of course. But the other move that's really significant is this move. It does a ton of damage, so it's really good to finish them off with MCs. And some more guys. You go over to Sin next. So you can use that to kind of quickly finish off a group, just like bash MC, bash MC, bash MC. I'll show this here in a sec. Just go. Sometimes they dodge, but it's okay. That's kind of why you don't want to use that too much. And when you're just up against one guy, you can just use this punch. And this killed him really quickly. And then Volcanic Viper, and that's with the Ghost buff. He's just like nearly dead. Yeah, Soul does a ton of damage. If you're fighting too many enemies and you just need to knock them all down, that's a good option. And the final thing that's really important to note with Soul is when you're in Dragon install, you just want to Volcanic Viper guys. You don't want to really bother with anything else because it's just the strongest thing you have. I'll show it against this guy who spawns here. I'm pretty sure if you just do this, he dies. Yeah, it's a very, very common mistake with, like, to do this. Don't bother, just Volcanic Viper. It does way more damage than anything else you have when you're in Dragon Install. At least Dragon Install 100. In Dragon Install 50, you want to use the normal clearance, of course. So, going on to Sin. With Sin, you're going to want to do this kind of thing. You're going to want to use these two moves, doing 4x and 5x. You also really want to make use of his free lock, I guess, smash attack, but we call it 8x. F8x. That's a really good move. And 8y. F8x is mostly useful when you're fighting the enemy master and trying to clear servants, because it's really difficult for masters to attack you while you're using the move. Like, you can kind of do this kind of thing with it, where you just go hit a guy, hit a guy, hit a guy, sidestep, hit a guy, sidestep, and it's really difficult to fight this for, I want to say every character, but I think it is every character. I don't think anyone has something super strong against that. One thing that I wanted to highlight particularly that Shax didn't is something I see Nikki C do, which is just this kind of thing. Just forward step 4x, forward step 4x, forward step 4x, because it just keeps hitting all of them. So that's really useful when you're in a big. And I didn't mention it for Soul, but Overdrive is obviously good. It's a lot better on Sin than I used to think. See, just killed that guy. It's easy to think it's kind of bad. It feels really weak to use, but it's not that bad at all. It can be extremely powerful, and if you're hitting enough enemies, the hit stop actually lets you like kind of combo them with the move, even though normally you cannot. And of course you want to use 5x for PPing. I don't think there's anything else to cover with Sin. Skill-wise, actually, Fan Barrel can be useful for Stormer Clear, but the main standout, of course, is Exciter. Exciter speeds you up by a lot. Popping it here. They're dead. You can just Beef Driver's special cancel to kill things slightly quicker, but to review for Sin, you want to use 5x. 4x is probably the best one you want to be using overall. 8x can be good as like a kind of finisher, and you can use F8x in schisms with enemy masters to hit servants at little cost to yourself. So it was actually Izuna and Paradigm, watching those, that got me to actually record my own, because Shaq didn't do a great job covering them, which makes sense. Izuna's Overdrive is excellent for Servant Clear. Like, I can just kill all these guys. That's absolutely phenomenal, of course. Let's summon a few more. But the main thing I want to take note of here is that when you're using 2Y, it actually does surprisingly higher damage to also use 6X. It's really good to do that. So definitely don't forget about that. You don't really ever want to do 2Y, 2Y. You want to do 6X, 2Y, 6X, 2Y. That's the kind of string you're going for. You can also use his J8X, kind of similar to how Soul uses his dash, because it just does a big chunk of damage. And when you're fighting a single unit, one thing that's really, really important as Izuna is to use your 8Y, yes, your Steel Wasabi, because it does pretty incredible amount of damage. It's actually a surprisingly powerful move if we fight rollers. Rollers have a lot of HP, and they will get absolutely cut by, I'll just do on this one, by this move. That's an armor unit, just loses all of its HP. Of course, it costs you significant tension as Izuna to use, which is obviously the move's downside, but it's a really important move to use for Servant Clear quickly. And using it effectively for Servant Clear is definitely something I can recall, something I really improved from Izuna play. That Servant Clear is mean, by the way, don't do that. I'm just kind of screwing around, but to recap for him, against high numbers of enemies, you're generally going to want to just use 6X into 2Y, especially against masters. That can be a little tricky to stop. And against single servants, you're going to want to use lots of Steel Wasabi. You can use 2 hits of this chain to help hit it more consistently, since they're stunned. And you want to use this move if you do not have any tension. Moving on to Paradigm. His Servant Clear is a little complex. You generally want to apply the oil debuff using pretty much any move available to you, it doesn't really matter, and then you want to do the explosion, obviously. Kappa are a bit unique, but they don't really matter for Paradigm. So the big thing to take note of there is I got the triple explosion. Oops. Triple explosion is really important to optimizing your Servant Clear. It's kind of tricky to do sometimes. And that's the main issue with the way Shax did it in his videos. He didn't use that at all. So you apply oil to them, and then you do the thing. But if you time a 2x precisely, you will actually get a third explosion off, which is what I did on that first one. Actually, missing a lot of health because I'm a noob. Necromata. That's interesting that it goes across and does not. It just regens. But I kind of want to make a highlight of the technique there, because that's really important. The extra explosion can really increase your damage because it's kind of like an exponential thing, just because it affects like all the units nearby. You often need to. That's a good move for applying it to a bunch of enemies. That one didn't work because I got hit, but first one worked, so you're just gonna have to take my word on that. Generally, to apply oil, you're gonna want to use this move. It hits a lot of enemies. It's the J jumping special, and your 3-hit neutral combo. You can also use 2x, but it knocks people down, so it's not great. One technique you can do, this is where Izuna is not great for this, but one technique you can do is, I should just use Namahage or something, is if you summon one close to you, one far away, and then you do 2x, you'll give them the oil and the bomb will trigger on them, which is good for speed, but it's not going to do as much damage because you can't get the triple explosion. That wasn't it either. It's very tricky to time, and I don't really play this character a ton, so I'm no master on it. I get one more attempt in the books, and then we'll move on to the next couple of characters. Oops. One more attempt at this technique. That was good. I think the master was making this up. I'm really embarrassing myself here. I hit it when I wasn't thinking about it. That's kind of a classic. Can I get it even once, dude? What the fuck? The Master Ghost is messing this up too. Maybe that's... That was actually it. You could hear the last explosion but didn't get hit because he died. Rough. I think I'll just end it there, actually. That's it. Honestly, I don't have much experience with Valentine. There may be a lot more intricacy than I think, but I don't have much to say about Valentine because to my knowledge it's pretty much just do this. Just do this move. Try not to hit the multi-hit because it will do less damage, and that's kind of all there is to it. Just spam this move. It's very annoying to hit and very kind of inconsistent, but it's extremely strong. It's... If the consistency on this was 100%, like you could always just hit the good hit on everything. See, it's kind of tricky because it gets close to me and all that. Then they run away. But if it was, it would probably be like the second best serving clear, but because it isn't, it's significantly weaker. You can also try using the projectile as a projectile, but also, while I get a chance to note it, on the Master Ghost, I mostly see people, they like charge this up, right? Like you would for Serving Clear. But it's actually way higher damage to do this. Because the multi-hit doesn't scale on the Master Ghost, so that's a little Valley tip for you. In terms of Kai is a Holy Brand, is a good character. It's good for knocking enemies down, but it doesn't do much damage, so you don't want to rely on it for damage. What you want to be doing is you want to knock them all down with Holy Brand, and then you go in and attack one enemy, because you're going to take a lot less damage when you're not getting ganged up on as much. So Kai's Servant Clear is not great, of course. Armored through it, of course. Legendary. The final note is Charge Stun Edge. Kind of like Sin's F8X, where it's not actually that good for Servant Clear. Like, if you have it, you may as well use it, but it's not really worth the mana cost for Servant Clear. But what it is worth the mana cost for is the fact that it's pretty useful when enemy masters get involved because it's a projectile. You can clear servants from a high distance away. And it helps you keep on pressure during, like, master combat on the servants, which is actually really important. You'll see some players, they'll put the servants as their top priority. I realize now I didn't really cover the more basic technique, so let's take that. I'm getting into advanced information, but if you really want the absolute basic, just watch Jackson's video. He did that part fine. But you generally want to be doing this string. It's pretty negligible, the difference between doing a sidestep into this kind of thing. But I just kind of prefer to do actual follow-up. That's just a me opinion. You can use any special move as like an ender thing. Doesn't really matter because none of them are really that good. And Ride the Lightning is obviously amazing. It's not that crazy good, really. I mean, it is good, but the main thing that makes it so good is that it's extremely good relative to Kai's other options. Like Soul's Tyrant Rave and Izuna's Overdrive especially, or Laurel Edge, are about as good. I mean, Tyrant Rave is a little inconsistent, but when it works, it works. And Laurel Edge is kind of arguably better. I don't think it is. Not quite, but arguably is. But the thing is, those characters already have good servant clear, just anyway. So Kai getting to use RTL saves him a ton of time relative to what it would have taken him. Even if, you know, for Soul it wouldn't have saved as much time, relatively, because he would have cleared them faster. So Raven is probably the character I'm like least able to confidently assess the servant clear of. To my knowledge, you generally just want to attack one enemy with this kind of thing. Just kind of spam this string. He doesn't have like anything to help him against groups. He is, I think, kind of worse off than Kai. Except for this. Let's see how good that is. Sheesh, that's a good overdrive. Raven's overdrive is extremely finicky. It has a feature where he actually jumps to the locked on target. So I think the optimal way to use it is to lock on to like the end of the crowd so that he'll jump through the crowd of servants. That's what I did there. That's why that overdrive is so effective. And you can pose after it by holding the button. Some people don't know that. I didn't for the longest time. But one thing that I think is quite important to note about Raven is his skill, Veslin Whimper. It does a lot more than it says on the tin. We can have a demonstration here. Watch this swordsman. He's doing nothing. Let's move him forward. So he wants to move here. But watch him not move there, because Veslin Whimper, it effectively puts these swordsmen completely out of commission, because what happens is they get silenced so they cannot attack. The slow is also pretty tragic for them, but they get silenced so they cannot attack, and then they lock onto the Veslin Whimper and try to destroy it. But they can't because they can't attack, so they just kind of do this. And you can just kind of wail on them without any fear of taking damage, which can be a large inconvenience when it comes to doing large groups, especially for characters who can't damage them. It has to do them kind of one at a time. So Veslin Whimper is extremely important to Raven's servant clear. I'll also say there are some weird servant clears I've seen, that servant clear loops that are kind of unorthodox. I think I've seen something like this used. Like this kind of vibe, you know? So there's definitely room for innovation here. I haven't even seen many people play this character now I think of it, but there's probably something more optimal that I'm missing. That was optimal as hell. So the general gist of things is that servant clear is actually really important. It's probably, I would say that, like, as a player, it would be better to know the optimal servant clear and servant clear well than to, like, know all your combos. Like, it's easy to think combos are important, but that's not really true. It's, like, in general in fighting games, of course, but especially in this game, because killing servants is generally higher value than killing the master, right? Because killing the master doesn't really do anything unless it wins you the game. Or you do it 4 times. Wins you the game as in the master ghost can be destroyed due to the lack of barrier. So you generally don't want to bother with it. There are some players who will actually, like, in the, like, fighting you, they'll just turn their back to go kill some servants, so they don't even care, because the way they see it, that damage on the servants, especially if you're actually getting the kill, is more valuable than even their own life. Some people will sacrifice their life to get a few servant kills, especially if you're going to lose it anyway, like you're 2v1, that's a strong option. It's something I try to incorporate in my own gameplay, but definitely something that is an improvement point for me. If you've watched my own footage, And you're like, well, you don't do that. Yeah, not extremely, but it's definitely an improvement I think you can see from if you go to my older videos. I don't servant clear in the middle of MVM as much, but that is extremely important. There's just the idea of like, actually we can get a demonstration. I like Kai, so I'm going to do him. I paused the recording for the setup before, so. But if you're fighting this guy, I'm going to set him to the CPU actually, then I can get a very live demonstration. Sure, I'm fighting this guy, but it's also important to be fighting these units. I want charge stunners, like I mentioned, for this exact position. See, I'm hitting them. I'm taking a ton of damage due to the Master Ghost debuff. And I get away while killing all the units. And that fight could have easily been lost. It kind of was lost because I ran away, but he just lost 3 units. So in the end, that's actually not really a loss for me, even though I had to run away. I got pretty good value out of that engagement. Obviously, a real player isn't going to really let that happen very often, but like that fight I just played out, even if I had died, I think would have been... I guess it does depend on the stage of the game, but at the very least, could be positive for me, you know? Like, that it's a very reasonable thing to do, to kill 3 units in exchange for dying, you know? It sounds bad, but it can be impactful. Because the longer units stay alive, the more they level up and such, but that gets into kind of advanced strategy that I don't think I should talk about, considering my own lack of understanding. As much as I would love to make videos going on tangents about Overture stratagem, I don't think myself knowledgeable enough to really do it and confidently say things are true when they could not be. So, but I do think most of what I've said here is at least pretty reasonable. I don't think any of it is blatantly false. So, hopefully you've learned something, and this hasn't been a waste of your time, because this is like 20 minutes for something that took Shaxx like... I reckon his videos in total are probably like 5 minutes, so... But, you know, it's the journey that counts.